Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So we're here with the Mustang Mach-E in Grand Teton National Park. So that's Mount Moran behind me, and the Mach-E is here. And you can see there's a lot of bugs on the front of the car. So I road tripped the car here. So I want to tell you what the road trip was like. What was it like driving from Boise, Idaho to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming? And I'll tell you all about the charging, how much it costs, and then what it's like to have the Mach-E here in a national park. So let's go. All right, we are sitting in the Mach-E here before the trip, so we're at 98%, gonna charge to 100%. We're leaving early in the morning. We're gonna go ahead and reset our driving history. We kind of want to have it recalibrate because we're gonna be getting on the interstate right away. And then you can see the display is 98%. And then looking at the OBD2 data, you can see display is 98%, but the actual state of charge of the battery is only 93%. And it says we have 63.8 kilowatt hours available. So yeah, definitely want to charge it to 100% here, at least on the display, because we still have some buffer there. All right, so we're going to reset our trip 1 and 2. So trip 1 will be every time we charge between chargers, and then trip 2, this will be the whole trip. All right, so it has 2 stops planned for us. I am planning to stop twice as well. Planning to stop a little bit earlier than this station because it sometimes gets kind of dicey getting to this one if it's windy and you're going 80 miles an hour, because it's an 80 mile an hour speed limit through here. Plus there's a charger that's a little bit closer in Twin Falls that has more stuff to do nearby. So I think we're going to do that, and then planning to stop at this one in Idaho Falls. Also planning to charge once we get to Jackson, because outside of Jackson there's really no DC fast charging. It's all level 2 if you can find it. So before we hit the road, I want to show you the route in a little more detail. So we start in Boise and then go over to Jackson and then up to Grand Teton National Park from there. It's about 370 miles from Boise, and then it'll be about another 30 to 40 miles into the park from Jackson. My Mustang Mach-E is a 2022 with all-wheel drive and the standard range battery pack, which is about 70 kilowatt hours usable and an EPA rated range of 211 miles. It's the shortest range configuration of the Mach-E since it has a smaller battery and all-wheel drive. Peak charging speed for this model is 115 kilowatts. Looking at the charging map, there really aren't that many charging options along the way for fast charging. This is a map of stations that have 2 or more plugs and can output 100 kilowatts or more, which ends up being Electrify America stations. This is perfectly fine, but there still aren't that many options, especially if you can't quite make it to the next station. You may have to stop early and charge, or really stretch it to the next charger. So if you add a couple more options by lowering the max output to 50 kilowatts or more, and also removing, hiding the dealerships, it gives you a couple more options, but still not a lot. The biggest difference is this opens up a couple of additional chargers in both Jackson, where we're going, and also in the Twin Falls area. Now you may be wondering about Tesla superchargers, because the Mach-E can now charge on the Tesla supercharger network, at least some of them, if you have an adapter. Now I don't have my adapter yet, but let's pretend that I did. There still aren't that many options. Most of these Tesla stations are V2 stations, which don't support the NACS to CCS adapters. There's only a couple of stations that actually are V3 and support this on this route. So here's one of them here. So you can see this supports the NACS adapter. Let me just show you the map of both Magic Dock and NACS adapter support stations. So along this whole route, there's only 2, and they're right next to each other. So if I had had my adapter, I probably would have tried to stop here, but it really wouldn't have made that much of a difference. So I'd really like to see Tesla open some additional V3 superchargers along this route that can support the NACS adapter. That would be great. Over on the West Coast, Portland, Seattle, there's a lot more charging options there with Tesla. But for this route, for me, there really isn't much difference. So I also want to show you the charging in the park itself. Once we leave Jackson and go up into the park, what are we going to do there? So there's very little charging up here. There are a couple of J1772 level 2 chargers. There's an occasional Wall or NEMA 1450 at campgrounds, but those are hard to get. You're probably going to need to reserve a campsite in order to charge there. So there's very little charging. So ideally, you're going to want to charge in Jackson and have enough that you can be up in the park for a few days, even if you can't charge. This is the same for Tesla as well. There are a couple of destination chargers in Jackson, as well as a V2 supercharger in Jackson, but up in the park, it's the same story for Tesla. Just very little charging for any EV, and so you'll want to plan accordingly. Left early in the morning, 100% state of charge, 221 miles. Now checking in, 50% update here. We've got about 46 miles to go. We've got about 4 miles to go. Our efficiency has not been great so far. We've only gone about 75 miles and we've already used half the battery. All right, so we're plugged in now at the Starbucks. Charging's ramping up here. This is a 125 kilowatt DC shared station. And I don't think I saw much higher than 70 kilowatts or so, maybe 80. We were the only car there, so the other charger was open. The car should be able to do up to 115 kilowatts, so it could just be how this station is shared. So it'd be nice to be charging a little bit faster, but this is still decent. And we're going to take a break and go over to Chick-fil-A, have some breakfast. So I'll reset the trip. Here's an update. We're at 57% state of charge, doing 73 kilowatts. And we've added 25 kilowatt hours so far. And here's the final charging numbers. We added about 51 kilowatt hours. We were there just under an hour. It was about a 15-minute walk each way to the Chick-fil-A. So it took a little time to get over there and eat. But that was fine because we need as much charge as we can get with the elevation and higher speeds. So we're back on the road. We've gone from 96% down to 64%. We're trying to get to the Electrify America at a Walmart in Idaho Falls, 103 miles away. Our rated range is about 105 miles right now, so it's going to be very close. If we can't make it to Idaho Falls, then we have to stop at the Electrify America in Pocatello, which is about 40 miles closer. So another update here, 93 miles of range, 56% state of charge. The car thinks we can make it to that Idaho Falls station with 2% left, but it's going to be pretty close. So I think given this, I decided to start slowing down a little bit, minimizing my climate usage, also trying to do a little bit of drafting behind semis when possible, because the car is showing 86 miles to go and 83 miles of range left. So we've got 32 miles of range left now and 22 miles to go. So slowing down and minimizing the climate definitely helped. Got 18% left, and we're pretty close. The car thinks we are going to get there with 6%. All right, so we made it. And I plugged into a 350 kilowatt station. I'll tell you more about that in a second. This station was not in great condition. So we do start charging on this 350, which is great. Let me show you what the numbers were from this last leg. So about 160 miles and a little better efficiency there, 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour from slowing down and optimizing there a bit with the climate. But checking the charging speed, it's not good. We're stuck at 30 kilowatts. It should be much higher. It should be 100 or more easily. So this is not a good sign. So I decide to switch stations. There we go. There we go. So 3 was only giving me 30 kilowatts, 2 the screen's out, and 4 is in use. So this looks like we're going to be in business here. All right, so checking the charging speed here, we're at 80 kilowatts and 7.1 kilowatt hours delivered so far at 20%, and we should be at 80% in about a half hour. The Electrify America app will also show you some useful stats as well. 50% update, 53%, still doing almost 80 kilowatts, almost 28 kilowatt hours delivered so far. And we're about to end the charging session now. So we were here just under 40 minutes. We're at 82% and just charging a little bit more while we get the car ready to go. Next stop is Jackson. All right, so we're down to 53%. have a lot more back roads, 2-lane highways in this part. You can see the tip of Grand Teton over there. And much better efficiency here so far. We're still gaining elevation, but just slower speeds, not quite as much headwind. So we've gone 60 miles, and we're doing 3 miles per kilowatt hour through this stretch with not too much climate use needed either. All right, so we're coming to the top of Teton Pass here. We're at 39%. We're at about 8,400 feet of elevation. We started the day at about 2,800 feet of elevation, so we've gained almost 6,000 feet. So let's watch and see if we are able to charge the battery at all on the way down, how much percentage we gain as we go down Teton Pass here. All right, so we're at 44% now. We're near the bottom of the pass. So we gained about 5% state of charge in just about 4 miles. So a little over 1% every mile on the way down. So that's pretty awesome. We're getting close to Jackson now, and I'm hoping we can charge when we get there since there's very little charging up in the park. All right, we made it into Jackson. These are free DC fast chargers, which is awesome. They're not the fastest, but they can do about 50 kilowatts or so. Which is still way faster than level 2 charging, and it's free, which is great. So on that last trip there, we went about 89 miles, 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, so great efficiency. Here's the whole charging session. We added 39 kilowatt hours for free. Thank you, Jackson. That's awesome. And we got up to 99%. There are 2 fast chargers here, and the other one was open while I was charging, so I didn't feel too bad letting it charge considering how little charging there is in the park. All right, now we're headed up into the park. We've got about 30 to 40 miles to go, and it's definitely nice having the EV here in the park. How smooth it is, the efficiency on these slightly slower speeds is really nice, and it's also fun because the Mach-E has the glass roof, so you got some great views no matter where you are in the car. So we'll check in again when we get to our cabin. All right, so we made it to our cabin here. It was about 40 miles north of Jackson, and we're down to about 85% state of charge, 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. So we're spending some time in the park, and we went over to the one EV charger that's in the park. Probably the nicest view from any EV charger you'll ever see. It's just a single J1772 level 2 charger, and it charges at about 5.6 kilowatts, but it's free, and it's definitely nice to have. Unfortunately, it's just a single spot, so it can sometimes be hard to get if there's a lot of other EVs in the area. Everybody's going to want to try and charge here if they can. All right, so we're on our way home now. We're heading back towards Jackson. We've got about 20-25 miles to go, and we're at about 50% battery here. It's pretty cold out. It's in the 30s right now, so we're running some heat, but I'm not too worried since we're going to charge in Jackson before we go much further. We're going to try and make it back to either Idaho Falls or maybe Pocatello, depending on how much charge we get and how our efficiency is on the way back. So unfortunately, both chargers were in use once we got to Jackson, which I was a little surprised about. It was a little after 7 a.m. in the morning on a Thursday, so I wasn't expecting any line or issue here. The orange Hummer EV looks awesome, but he was trying to get to 100% because he's going up to Yellowstone. And like we've talked about, there's just very little EV charging around here, so he kind of needs as much juice as he can get. The Model Y owner wasn't there initially, but you can see on the station it says available, which means his car had just finished charging, so we were hoping he would come back soon. Thankfully, he came back, he was able to move, and we were able to plug in, which I was relieved about because we were down to 38% and we needed to get to at least 60% or so to have enough to make it back to Idaho Falls where the next DC fast charger is. This could have been problematic if we were stuck on a level 2. We could have been there for several hours trying to get enough energy to be able to leave Jackson. So we were charging at about 44 kilowatts, not super fast, but way faster than level 2. We had some great efficiency between Jackson and Idaho Falls, and we were actually able to have enough charge that it looked like we could make it to Pocatello. Here's the map in the car that shows how far it thinks we can go. All right, and we're almost to the Pocatello Electrify America. We're down to 9%. We've got 22 miles of range and 1 mile to go. You can see we got 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour since Jackson, which is awesome. We plugged in and we got great speeds right away on the first charger we tried, which was great. So we were back in business and things were looking pretty good. We did 136 miles on this leg, but remember we only started with about 64% state of charge. We had our best efficiency by far, 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour, after losing quite a bit of elevation. Good charging session here for the Mach-E, still doing almost 90 kilowatts after about 15 minutes, and later doing 70 kilowatts now, getting close to 80%. We're above 80% now, and we've tapered down to about 30 kilowatts. This charging station had one of the 4 units offline. The other 2 were available. Going to unplug now. We should have plenty to get to the next stop. The next stop is going to be Twin Falls, so we'll go ahead and disconnect here. All right, checking in here on the road. So we're doing 80. We've been maintaining 80 for a little while now, and the efficiency seems to be going better in this direction. Probably the elevation, but also the wind as well. So we're averaging 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. I also have the sunshade installed. I've had this installed for most of the trip, and it helps keep the heat down so we don't have to use the climate as much. All right, we're at 37% now. We've got about 20 miles to go, so should have no problem making our destination here. So we made it to Twin Falls. We're at 29%. We went 112 miles, and let's go ahead and plug in. We're ramping up now, and I still haven't gotten full speeds on these stations. I've been getting somewhere around 65 to 70, which isn't terrible since the Mach-E, at least my Mach-E, can't charge that much faster than that. Here's the full charging session. You can see we kind of slowly keep ramping energy over time, and then it drops off there. So we got up to about 96%, added 44 kilowatt hours. So we should be able to make it home now, no problem. Go ahead and reset the trip and get back on the road. Last check-in here on our way back to Boise. So we're down to 40% state of charge now. Been maintaining 80 for a while. 105 miles, 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour. We made it. I'm charging here at work the next day, and I only charged up to about 83%. It's better for the battery not to be charged all the way up. So in the final numbers, I'll note that. So final trip 2 numbers here, 919 miles, 3 miles per kilowatt hour. All right, so the final numbers, you can see I benefited from some free charging there in Jackson and also a little bit in the park. And then I paid for the Electrify America Pass Plus pricing so I could save on the charging. And then at the bottom there, I added a little bit of cost of what it would cost me to get back to 100%, since that's what we started the trip with at 100%. So in total, I used 312 kilowatt hours to go 918 miles, and it cost me $96.42. We had some family come with us on this trip, and so we actually had 2 vehicles, and the other vehicle was a gas car, 4-cylinder, small SUV. So we kept track of those numbers as well. The total mileage is a little bit less since we were able to kind of use one car to get around most of the park. But you can see the cost is actually pretty similar. With EVs, you're going to be paying more for electricity when you're doing the DC fast charging, because you're paying for that convenience and being able to charge quickly. The number would be a lot lower if you were able to, do home charging. Even still, I did benefit from some free charging, so that's factored in here. And I paid an average of 31 cents per kilowatt hour. I averaged 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour over the whole trip. And then the gas vehicle paying an average of $3.47 a gallon for gas and average 27.8 miles per gallon. All right, well, that's it for this trip. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.